Okay, time to answer some questions. We have a question here. These are comments from our loyal watchers. One question says, aren't these strong emotional responses damaging to the system? Okay, so simply, no. Emotions are not damaging to the system. Powerful emotions aren't damaging to the system. Profoundly immersive emotions are not damaging to the system. In fact, this may sound ironic or paradoxical or whatever, flippant maybe, but it's the belief that they are damaging, the belief that they can be damaging. That's at least an example of the mechanism of avoidance that causes repression of emotion, unconscious behaviors, causes us to shoot up into our head and rationalize, to judge, to externalize, blame, get enmeshed with others. All of that dysfunction actually comes from these fundamental beliefs that I can't handle it. The emotion's too much for me. It's going to damage me. It's going to damage the system. When the mind stops making all of these assumptions, stops making these scary thoughts so believable that we shoot up into our mind, that we grasp onto thoughts, that we do anything we can not to directly feel. When that stops happening, then this becomes such a non-issue. You find out that the body-mind, the body, the sense itself, the physical sense of just being alive, has vast capacity. It has infinite capacity, tremendous capacity for experience. But the moment it's touched with thought, which comes in some form of, I can't handle this, this is too much, it's overwhelming, this is going to make me crazy, on and on and on. Or blame, someone caused this and they need to fix it, or I need to get my external conditions right so that I can feel better. The moment any of that starts happening, it becomes very uncomfortable. It feels like what we might call afflictive emotion, or maybe what some people might call negative emotions. I often say there aren't negative emotions. There are perhaps negative responses to emotions or unhealthy responses. But these responses, these unhealthy responses, are so prevalent, so common, that I can't even say that they're atypical or abnormal. They're normal, actually. So we're living in this sort of collective, enmeshed world of emotional avoidance, and we use interactions with others to do it. So we're always trying to disassociate it in some way, especially when there's intense emotions. When we start to break that spell, when we start to investigate identity and deconstruct identity, we have the ability and capacity to feel very, very directly. From that direct feeling, that direct experience, without thought, without avoidance, without enmeshment, all of a sudden we realize the capacity for feeling is essentially infinite. We're okay. We can handle it. The body can handle it. You may even notice energetic changes. You may notice movement of the body, trembling, things like that. That's why these practices like TRE or other types of somatic modalities can be so valuable here, because they're teaching you the capacity the body has to handle energy or to discharge energy or just to get you out of your head. So yeah, the truth underlying with emotion is you actually have the capacity to feel anything. And there's a tremendous amount of intelligence and wisdom in just staying in the physical sense. Try it. See how long you can do it before the mind starts making these reactions, these putting up distractions, putting up fearful thoughts, leading you down the road to various types of addictions. Just notice how long it takes for the mind to do that. It's often very quick at first. But as we dial into this, as we learn to sit with the experience itself, with the sensation field, and let it be what it is, where it is, and how it is, the more we start to open this gap where we realize, oh, I can actually stay with that for a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, 2, 3, 4 minutes. I can sit with the sensations, and now I can stand up and move with the sensations without having to turn it into any kind of story any kind of fearful narrative about what I can't handle, or what I need outside of this moment and this experience, which is just another way of saying I can't handle this experience. So yeah, as that gap widens, we realize more and more that we can just stay with the sensation field and not have to do anything. We don't have to imagine when it's going to end. We don't have to try to find the right way to deal with an emotion. We don't have to push against ourselves. We don't need anything in this space. The belief that we need something beyond true feeling is the fundamental error when it comes to emotion, in my experience. So, good question. Let's move on. Someone asked here, I want to let go, but how do I? I close my eyes and I want nothing more than to let go of everything, and yet I am stuck with this self. Honestly, I don't care anymore. I am done with myself. I am not suicidal, but I would be fine with not living. I say that to say I am pretty sure I am at the level of letting go that you speak of, and here I am speaking from the mind and the ego. Please help. LOL. I like the LOL part. So, I would point back to you, not the first 3 sentences or so, but right here where you get down to the point where you said, I'm pretty sure I'm at the level of letting go that you speak of. Great. And yet, here it comes, right? I am speaking from the mind and ego. Are you? Are you something that's speaking from a mind and ego? Or perhaps you're the one believing that thought, I'm speaking from the mind and ego. Where are you believing that thought from? Trace it back, find it. Where am I believing the thought from that says, I'm fed up, I'm done with this, I'm ready to let go, and I don't know how to let go? Those are both distorting. I'm ready to let go, and I don't know how. Are you sure about either of those, or are those thoughts? And if those are thoughts, and you let go of those thoughts, where are you proceeding from? Where are you now? What are you now? When you let go of the single thought that says, I'm stuck, where are you? What are you? What is actually happening when we let go of that narrative? I'm stuck. What are you, or what's happening when you let go of the narrative that says, no, I know this is happening for me. I'm sure this is what's happening for me. Are you? Or is the one that's sure this is happening also the one that tells itself it wants to let go? Do you see how it tricks itself? It contradicts itself in its own motivations. So contradiction is where the mind can come to a stop when you recognize it as such. And then contradiction turns out to be a reflection of something else, which I might just call paradox. Something that is impossible to say in words, and yet impossible to overlook. It's so clear, so obvious, so simple. Yes, I know the mind says, oh, I want that. Wish I could have it. What happens when you believe that thought? I wish I could have that. You automatically reinforce the belief that it's not there. What happens when you believe the thought that says, I'm stuck? Automatically it presupposes some feeling tone of needing to get somewhere else and not being able to, or needing to get out of where you are and not being able to. So the moment you believe that thought, you're you're already stuck. You're kind of spinning your wheels in the mud. It's the belief, though, that's the issue. The belief is the issue. The belief is the fundamental fixation around any of these ways of perceiving. The belief is key. What is the nature of belief? What happens if we don't believe one single thought? Right now. Try it right now. Don't believe the next thought. Which leads me to another question someone asked. This was on email, and it was relayed to me by someone who was answering emails for me. And it was essentially, it's not true that all beliefs are false. Of course, when I say all beliefs are false, or I'd rather say it this way. it's possible to hold no beliefs. That's the proper way of saying it. And yet this person said, well, 1 + 1 = 2. That's a belief no matter what. Or a certain president's going to win the next election no matter what. That's just true. That's absolutely true. So thus, the idea that all beliefs are false is erroneous. Here's the deal. You're looking in the wrong place. You're looking at the belief. I'm saying look at the one that holds the belief. That's what's false. The conviction you have is really just a conviction that you want to believe thoughts, that those thoughts are real, and they're really meaningful. And the insistence to hold on to that view is insistence to hold on to thought, which actually is an effect of the fear of letting go of thought, letting go of belief. So you absolutely can let go of all beliefs, and they'll look very different to you. So we can talk about relative and absolute and say, sure, in the relative world, certain beliefs are more accurate than others in the relative world. But you're completely, when you hold on to the relative world that tight, you're completely overlooking the absolute aspect. And that's a huge, well, infinite is a whole big place, isn't it? Infinity is a rather large something, or a rather large nothing, right? To overlook the absolute is to overlook so much. That's what we wake up to, right? That's just the first stage of awakening, is waking up to the absolute. So to hold on to the relative and think that that's it, that's the whole answer. That insistence is fear. That grasping is fear. Let go of your grasp on all those thoughts and beliefs. They're not helping you. It's not helping you to argue for your own fixation on beliefs. A relative belief will be there when you need it, right? If you need to, say, put gas in your car or something, gasoline in your car, putting it in the right place, using the right type of gasoline, you're going to have that information when you need it. It doesn't even have to be a belief. It's just information that appears, right? It's knowledge of some sort. But belief is different. Belief is tied to you. Belief is you are the anchor of the belief. You are the source of the belief. You are the belief, actually. What you're arguing against is no self. You're not arguing against belief, whether you know it or not. You're arguing against the possibility that there's actually no one and nothing here. And that's far, far more challenging to the psyche, to the sense of self, to the identity structure than all beliefs being false. That's small potatoes compared to what we're up against when we talk about no self-realization. But that's very far down the road too. So the beauty of this is you don't have to accept that at any point along the way. In fact, it doesn't matter to accept it. And if you were to accept it logically or even against your own logic, but you just accept it conceptually, that does you no good. You have to wake up to it. So set that aside. Don't get hung up on one little fixation around what Angelo said about beliefs. If you're interested in this process and not just holding your ground so that you feel safe and so you feel like you understand what's going on, if you're interested in this process, look inward. Look at what seems to be holding those beliefs. Look at what happens if you were to challenge your own beliefs. If you were to ask yourself, who am I without all these beliefs? Not about 1 + 1 in the presidential election. I'm stumbling over words. Not about math facts or not about, political facts. The big challenge is the belief that you hold those beliefs. The belief that you are at the center of your world, that you're at the center of life, that you're at the center of experience right now. That's the belief that you're trying to protect. You don't want to look there, right? It's scary to look there. None of us really want to look there until we have no other choice. Then when we do look there, of course, we're surprised and astounded by what is found, what is revealed. But we have to break through the fear. And often that fear comes with an intellectual stubbornness. Like, no, it can't be this way. Don't worry about how it is. Become concerned with who's holding the view. Become concerned with who's holding the view of your life. Who's holding the view of what's true and false for you. That's what matters. Look at that. Can you find it? Right? Instead of getting like analytical with numbers or something, just look and see who it is that feels like they're the ones who believe all of this. Can you find that? Can you find it precisely? right? Because the mind that's really analytical and precise, it likes its own precision, but its own precision can only be objective. It can only be an object of thought. You can only find precision and logic in objects of thought. Try to find it in the subject. Try to find the subject, like directly, not through thought. See what happens. That's the key. That's what we're always talking about with the backward step. So you have to get really curious about this or it won't work. You have to be really, really done with the limitations of your own mind trying to make life satisfying. You might make it make sense in a certain way, but you won't make it satisfying with thought. So when you see that there's a massive limitation there, then you can start looking backwards and going, okay, well, I should know who I am if I'm going to hold beliefs, shouldn't I? If I'm going to want to obsess about the nature of beliefs and understanding and knowledge, shouldn't I first know darn well who I am? Who or what it is that holds that knowledge, those beliefs? And I don't mean a collection of memories, right? Because that's just a bunch of thoughts. Meaning, if you don't think about anything in the past right now, who are you? That kind of inquiry, that's very valuable here. So I would suggest that kind of approach. And let me know how it goes. Someone asked, is there a physical or energetic detachment that occurs at some point? I've only heard about it from one teacher, but I've also heard about a contraction that lets go from other teachers. I think those are two different things. Contraction that lets go could be a release into the realization of non-duality, which is anything but detached. It's not detached. It's the opposite. It's when you essentially can't really disassociate anymore. You have to feel everything. It's all here. It's all in contact all the time. The contact is thoroughgoing. It's seamless. It's intimate. Yeah. So can we disassociate early on? For sure. And I might call that energetic or maybe even physical detachment. But I really think this goes back to the first question I answered here, and that is there's a widespread hypnosis among humans that essentially says, I'm terrified of feeling something very, very deep, even though we don't realize we're doing this. We're happy to feel certain things, but there are certain things that are so terrifying to us that we avoid even seeing how afraid we are to feel them. And that's this kind of physical, energetic detachment. It's already happening. So we're actually correcting that. We're correcting the course here. So as realization propagates, the boundaries that seem to separate you from everything, including your own body, your own sensations, et cetera, consciousness from sensation, consciousness from the body, from form, apparent form, all of that will deconstruct. And it's very paradoxical because you actually deconstruct into a certain formlessness. But the intimacy is very obvious, very clear, and it's nothing like the intimacy of the conceptual mind. Good question. Someone said non-reactive, non-resistant, that's all fine. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't heal the way you feel. I don't know what that means. That's bypass. And I have no clue why you suggest otherwise, or at least don't mention the healing. Heal what you feel. What do you mean by that? The vibe that resonates from this video is suffer and be passive about it. Yeah, well, unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure which video. I can't talk about what I talked about in the video because I don't remember. But if you're non-reactive and non-resistant, if that's truly the case, that's very deep realization. And in very deep realization, you're not bypassing. That's not bypassing. It's quite the opposite. So a lot of times what we do is we use the idea of healing. This is the comments by Ball Smasher, by the way. So I don't know if, take that as you will. But what we call healing is something like management. A lot of times what we consider healing something is actually managing it, trying to avoid it, trying to get past it, trying to fix it, right? Like, for instance, if someone told you, you need to be healed, you as a person need to be healed. There's something wrong with you, right? What does that interaction suggest? There's something fundamentally wrong with you. So if we're trying to heal an emotion, that's suggesting there's something fundamentally wrong with emotion, and there isn't. So if we're healing something like trauma, etc., I think the real thing we're doing actually is integrating. We're seeing through the darkness. We're seeing through shadow spaces. And ultimately it leads to a sort of integration rather than a healing. Because there's nothing in you that's broken. There's nothing in you that's unclean, impure. Yeah. So again, paradoxical. But the deeper you feel, the more directly you feel, the more instantaneously you feel, the less any of this becomes a problem. Yeah. Bypassing is the opposite. It's not feeling. It's using this, the mind, to avoid. It's maybe somewhat, I mean, everyone's going to bypass for a while. It's just going to happen, right? I mean, stable disassociation that I call mind identification, there's always bypassing going on. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to bypass the feeling of being alive, trying to bypass shame, trying to bypass guilt, doubt, fear, existential terror, helplessness. That's all being bypassed by mind identification. Yeah. So what we're doing with true realization is we're reversing the process of bypassing. Good question. This is Ball Smasher again. They said, this has nothing to do with awakening, but the process leading to it. Don't know what they mean by that. Someone said, this is Kate Higgins. Angelo, question. You mentioned once about sensations in the face lingering for a long time with you. I'm experiencing that, and it has been, probably a couple of years or more. Was that something that you did anything about, for lack of a much better phrase? Shoot super straight with me right now. Lingering for a long time with you. Sensations in the face, tensions in the jaw. I had those for a long time. I think that's maybe what you're talking about, like jaw tensions and things like that. Headaches. I had headaches, energetic stuff for a long time. Chronic tension states in the face and jaw and head. Yeah, that was common for me for years. Was it something that you did anything about? I didn't do much about it. Well, okay, that's not true. The moment I noticed it, I could put attention there and it would relax. I could just sit there and relax the jaw and face and sit, meditate, and it'd relax for sure. And a lot of times it would stay relaxed for a while, but then all of a sudden I just noticed it's cramped again. It's like, and it's almost like I don't know how to say it, almost like I was doing it intentionally, but not knowing I was doing it intentionally, because I could volitionally just relax everything, and I could sort of dissolve it pretty quick. But then it would just kind of creep back in over time, and it did that for quite a while. So to me, that was just chronic tendency towards tension, towards struggle, towards, contraction that was ongoing and was left over from, years of mind identification. So that was my perception of it. Could I have done more than that? I'm sure I could have, right? There's all kinds of energy modalities you could try, different practitioners. There's a lot of things I could have tried. I just didn't, mostly because I didn't have it available. I didn't know about anything at all, except for my own experience. So, yeah. But I didn't make it a problem too much. I mean, it wasn't comfortable, but I didn't stress about it. It felt like it was just a natural way, like that this is the way it's going, and it'll probably settle over time. But I didn't even have that belief it should, because it wasn't really a place of holding beliefs. It was just known. It was felt, and it wasn't constant either. Like I said, it was coming and going, but it was so common. I thought it was pretty normal for me or for this body mind until it slowly subsided over time. Good question. So someone said, so what about no self? Is it that monster under the bed? Is no self the monster under the bed? No self is more like you're scared of the monster under the bed. You're terrified. You just don't even want to look. And then you get the finally get the courage to look, and you reach down and slowly pull up that bed cover that's reaching towards the floor, and you pull it up real fast, with that last bit of courage, even though you're terrified, and you see there's nothing there. That's awakening, right? And then you're like, oh, you're so relieved, and you lay back, and then you're really relieved for quite some time. And then you start realizing, well, if there's no monster under the bed, where's the monster, right? So then you think, well, maybe it's in here, right? I'm sort of taking some creative liberties here, but you start doing the shadow work, and you start to greet the monsters within, right? And see that they're there, and settle them, and through compassion, understanding, love, contact, they dissolve over time. No self is when all of a sudden you look in the mirror and there's nothing there either. There's no bed, no one on top of the bed, no covers, no beginning, no end, no time, no starting or finishing, no birth or death. That's no self. Okay, that's it. That's all I got for the day. Thanks for your questions, everybody.